Yo, welcome everybody. Today it's gonna be a special episode because it's gonna be full in English, but don't worry because I'm gonna provide you with a translation, of course. And we're gonna have a special guest from Delysium Team. So it's gonna be an interview in the form of AMA, Ask Me Anything. You will find out many interesting things about the Delysium game, about their future plans and so on. Additionally to that, we will give 3 rewards to the best questions have been asked in the comment section on my Twitter. So without further ado, please enjoy my intro! Okay, welcome everybody. Today I have a special guest from Delysium Team. Yannick, please introduce yourself.
Hi, nice to be here. My name is Yannick. I'm the brand lead at Delysium, and we're going to talk about, the project today. Thank you for having me, Mike.
Thank you too. I hope we're gonna have a very interesting conversation. The conversation, it's supposed to be an interview in the form of Ask Me Anything, but I would like to keep it just relaxed, that I'm not gonna bump you too much with the questions. We have some questions from the comments from the post I was posting this week, so we can start maybe from first of them, from a user named Pacman. Please provide me a more detailed breakdown of how to reduce a cure over the time. For example, what will be the distribution percentage of DMA holders in the second, third, fourth and fifth years respectively, and how does that impact long-term value position of DMA holders?
Yes, okay, this is a very good question, and we get this question a lot. The first thing is that you need to take a look at the price metric. So the price will actually increase. It actually does increase after 10,000 sales, with every 100 additional sales. So the price increases by $25, right? So this mechanic, first of all, increases the value of the DMA, right? It becomes more expensive to acquire the DMA. So the early purchasers, they will have, let's say, a little bit higher benefit. And then there's a halving of the pool every 2 years. So the reason for this is because the DMA is directly connected to the DMO. So the DMA stands for Delysium Multiverse Accelerator, and the DMO stands for Delysium Multiverse Operator. So these operators, they are like, let's say, governing nodes within the Delysium open world framework. So what this means is that these DMOs, they can introduce their own incentive layers, right? So they could use, maybe their tokens, or they could use our tokens, or they could use a multitude of different incentives. And they are the let's say, the factor, the manager of their part of this universe. So they will create a revenue, and these DMA holders, they will be awarded based off the performance of the DMO, right? So they are basically sharing part of the profit of the DMO. And if we're talking about Delysium, the game, then okay, we're talking about the game, but we're also talking about other games that we will start to onboard into our decentralized publishing model. So if we're thinking about, okay, what is it going to be like the second year, and what's going to be like the third year and the fourth year and the fifth year, then I think that we need to start thinking about the development of the ecosystem. So how fast is the ecosystem going to develop, and how many DMOs will we have, and what are their, actual activities going to be? Like how many transactions are they going to contribute to their ecosystem? How many NFTs are they going to sell, right? And that will be directly reflected onto the performance of the DMA, if you will. So building a DMO ecosystem provides kind of like a revenue loop for the DMA holders. And then there's a maximum amount of DMA supply. So at 50,000 DMAs, there's no more. That's it.
So after with the growth of amount of DMA, also the rewards of our token Agi, they are dropping significantly. I remember at the beginning of this month, I was getting like 90 per day. Now it's around 85. So every day there is a small little drop.
Correct. And this is because there's more people who buying the DMA. So you share the same pool, and the pool right now is relatively stable, right? Fixed. But very soon, so in the coming months, we will have more DMOs and we will have more, let's say, revenue loops. So you could see probably a fluctuation in this reward.
Okay, let's go to another question from Sleepnot. At the moment, what's your focusing right now? Building and developing product or getting customers and users or partnerships? Could you explain?
Yeah, very good question. For me to be able to answer that correctly, we need to go into the history a little bit, because I think we had a quite humble beginning, quite humble approach, which was, okay, let's develop this game. Let's develop this AAA blockchain game where, we will create this ecosystem for all of our users and all of our fans. They can play together, they can earn together. And this was a really good idea, and it's still, how we started, but now we are developing and developing, becoming bigger, because we realized that our solutions are not only useful to our game, they're also useful to, and also we are developing the technology that is supporting this kind of infrastructure and this kind of game world with AI. So the company that has incubated Delysium, the game, is called RCT AI, and RCT AI has been developing its own technology for many years. So we're talking about gaming technology, AI-driven gaming technology. So that's also why we were able to release, for example, Lucy. So I think in this stage of the project, like partnerships are always, important, and developing the product is always important. But right now we are developing the product alongside the partnership. But what we are really trying to achieve right now is we're trying to introduce all of these AI solutions and actually have them be applied within our ecosystem that is growing. And what I mean with growing is that we are focusing on the decentralized publishing, and we are focusing on the decentralized AI. So within this AI ecosystem, we will have more and more product. And within this decentralized publishing, besides Delysium the game, we'll have more and more games as well. So yeah, that's
Sounds
pretty
really
much
interesting. We also had on our channel, we also had AMA with Lucy before, like one month ago.
Yeah. Lucy is very cool. What do you think of Lucy, Michael?
Yeah, we've been trying to make some conversation in here on the channel. Some questions been very interesting, also about gaming and cryptocurrency. So yeah, it was fun experience to have a AMA with a chatbot. So
Cool.
next question from the Bazis. How adaptable to future changes in the crypto scene you feel you can the gamify be? Like now we have the type of DeFi on L1 and L2's chains, and but 2-3 years from now, everything about the market could be different. Do you think the gamify to stay very relevant when such changes happen?
Yeah. Also, an interesting question regarding GameFi in general, right? And I think it's a very valid question, because if you remember in the bull run, the last bull run, we saw some of the games go like really, really crazy. I don't remember what the token price of some of those games was, but it was really almost insane, right? And I think that, if we think about this as the peak of GameFi, I think that's not reasonable. I think that's not very sustainable. And actually, most of the games during that time, they didn't even release the game yet, right? It was just the hype. So I think that if we were thinking about, okay, 2 to 3 years from now, how could the market be different? Well, first of all, I think we will see a lot of games. We will see many projects being released, and then we will see many projects really struggling with getting users, and then we will see many projects disappearing. But during this process, we will also see the GameFi industry really developing and really coming to, a little bit of a more mature level. So, okay, whether you're an L1 or L2 or how you're building your infrastructure, it doesn't matter anymore, because it will already be built. It will be a framework that anybody can just, fork, and they can build their own stuff on top of that. So what I think is going to be very different, though, is how these games, first of all, being developed, and how we're going to interact as users within these games. And I think that's also very important if we're thinking about Delysium. What is Delysium, right? Then those two differences, or those two factors, are very important. So let's talk about the second one first, because I think that is very close to home. So the second one is how are we going to interact with these type of worlds? What I mean is that AI, artificial intelligence, is going to be a very important aspect of this. Right now, a lot of games and it's changing fast, but a lot of games, they're quite, let's say, firm, and they're quite straight to the point, right? So you have this NPC, it's me, I go into the game, I talk to some characters, they always say the same thing, I always have the same mechanics, right? It's a very straightforward traditional gaming environment. But when we introduce artificial intelligence, this becomes very interesting. That's why we're saying also Lucy, because now I go into the game and I talk to Lucy, and today Lucy is, happy, but tomorrow Lucy is not that happy, and she's a little bit more mean to me, and she's less willing to help me. But today, I'm lucky because she's being nice. So today she gives me like 50 AGI to buy armor, but tomorrow that might only be 35 AGI. So by giving this AI, of course there needs to be boundaries, but by giving this AI, let's say, power inside the metaverse, or power inside Delysium, or power inside any GameFi for that matter, you create a very dynamic environment. And then if we're thinking, okay, well, I am a player, and one of the solutions that we are working on right now is your AI virtual being. You as AI inside these games. So you have these different parameters, you have the way to train your model, and then your model can actually go out into the game and perform these actions for you. Or maybe you have like a whole squad, a whole team, So if you would have to, let's say, think in a more easy way, what this could mean is basically you're just creating another world, a real world, because everything is super dynamic, right? Like you meet somebody in the supermarket, for example, and you don't know, is this person a player, or is this person an AI NPC, AI virtual being? And it doesn't really matter, but it will create for a very dynamic way. I think that's a very interesting, very interesting development we're going to see. And then the first part is, how are these games being developed? It also has to do with AI, actually, because right now, the traditional game development, it's very hard, man. It takes a lot of money, and it's very long process. Some of these games, triple A games, development takes 5, maybe 6, and then once the game is released, it's another years upon years upon years of actually continuous development, right? So when we're seeing all this new technology now, it's not perfect, but right now, you type something and then you'll get a 3D model. It's pretty crazy. So imagine, like very soon, I just watched this video on it was an Unreal video, Unreal Engine 5, and they were creating an environment, and they had some parameters. I'm pretty sure it was AI involved, and then within like 15 minutes they created this giant mesh forest with lakes and this and that, and everything was perfect, and the dynamics, and the wind blows and everything. I was like, wow, if they can create this in like 45 minutes and actually spawn a character in it and have it accessible to people, imagine like how you as a user in the future will be able to contribute and to build within this metaverse.
Right now, even if you have an iPhone, there are apps where you can map scan your room, for example, and transfer it to the metaverse.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy with the new iPhone, the LiDAR, and like it also takes the color and everything, and then you will have the AI that like it scans it, and then you have your phone on the table, and then it knows it's a phone, and it will probably turn it into a phone. So it's very exciting. I think the biggest difference is going to be in those 2 points.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Paul Wablo. What kind of marketing currently are you running?
Yeah, so I think that we are very active in general. We do a lot of community kind of activities, so we try to keep our community involved. So we have several community events and activities. So we really see that, from a traditional marketing perspective, you need to be active, you need to be talking to your fans and your users. So we have different channels, and we activate those channels. And then we do some offline events. So for example, we had several gaming trial events, and then we had events for our partners. We had a boat event in Hong Kong, and then we go to conferences, etc. So there's a lot of activity, but I think that in the near future, let's say the next couple of months, you guys should stay tuned, and you should definitely follow our Twitter, because we're going to announce some pretty exciting stuff.
Hopefully I can also show up on the next event. I had the invitation for Hong Kong, but I have to different plan this day. So, Jurad Kaut, very difficult username. Why did you create the project? What motivates you to start the project?
Yeah, so I think that, from our team perspective, it was a multitude of things. And I wouldn't be able to say, okay, this is like absolutely the reason why it started. But I think that the vision of Delysium is very important to understand. So how we imagine the future as a company, as Delysium, as a project, we like to think that in the future we would like to create a virtual society. And this virtual society is basically a little bit similar to what I just said. It's like 10 billion AI virtual beings living among 1 billion human players. So that is the big picture, right? That's what we want to achieve. And we achieve this through developing the frameworks, developing the technology, the non-AI technology, but also developing the AI technology, educating the Web 2 and Web 3 users, and then providing opportunities through partnerships, etc., right? So the underlying, let's say, philosophy to that, the deeper level of philosophy is that, we think that if we create this kind of virtual society, virtual world, we will be able to contribute to reducing the suffering of humans inside the world, because there's a lot of violence and there's a lot of, negativity inside this world. And we believe that if we can create another reality, a virtual reality alongside our reality, then we will be able to help people, experience this world, experience maybe things that they were not able to experience, maybe even, for some people it will be a way to experience the things that they cannot experience, but for other people it will be a way to, get away. So inside this virtual reality you can do whatever you want, so that outside you'll be able to be a more chill human being.
Now is the question from Paul Oblo. The idea of the project is really unique and incredible. How did this idea come about?
Yeah, I think that this idea came about from a collaborative perspective on how the gaming industry should be, coming from frustrations regarding the traditional industry, and just having the vision for a longer term perspective on how can we create value for this community of Web3 users, this community of gamers, and then beyond that, the entire world as the metaverse starts to develop. And this was a very, let's say, logical and long-term solution for a lot of problems that are very apparent in these different industries. So I think that, we have our white paper actually has a really easy to follow structure and a very nice explanation on the entire model. And it's actually the first playable white paper in the world. So you can go to delysium.com/whitepaper and it will load, and then you can actually play a small video game, which is the white paper.
Yeah, pretty cool. I showed it also on my channel. So the same user, do you allow suggestions and feedback from the community? Are we allowed in decision making? Do you put community into consideration?
Yes, it's a very good question, because I think that's, one of the core values that a lot of Web3 users share, right? They want to have a decentralized structure where their vote is also important, right? But what we have to understand is that these votes, they need to be weighed, right? Like, it's not just like anybody that's part of the community and maybe doesn't really contribute, they can come in and they can have a vote. Obviously, yes, we do listen very carefully to our community, and we do have voting, and we do have polls, and we take our community as a whole very seriously. But when we're talking about, serious feedback, serious input on the development of different aspects of the project, then we need to think about the weight of your vote as well. So if we're talking about, for example, different weights within our ecosystem, so DMA holders, they have higher voting weight, and when staking the same amount of AGI to vote and support the DMOs, users that are holding the DMAs, they can contribute to higher staking metrics, and thus they will help the Delysium ecosystem develop, so their votes will be counted more seriously, right? So for example, you, Michael, if you have a DMA, I know that you do, then your vote nodes would be taken into serious consideration because you are actively contributing to the ecosystem, right? And then now, of course, if you're a DMO, that's even a more different story, because then a DMO is also at the same time some kind of like management module for the DMAs, and DMAs will be able to choose which DMO they will support. So then you as a DMO, oh, okay, well, you are even more important because you're actually building on top of the framework. So, okay, you need to consider what is the community, right? So the community is built up out of these different nodes and these different builders and these different infrastructures and these different suppliers and different partners and different, project managers. And then we have the fans, right? So, okay, if you're asking how can I become a more important node in this ecosystem and in any ecosystem, then I would say you should definitely start to contribute as a community member.
And Discord is the right place where you can start.
Yes, exactly.
Next question from Messina. How does the DMO system in the decentralized gaming publishing structure ensure fairness-oriented on-chain incentives? Can you provide specific examples on mechanisms that promote fairness within the system? Very interesting question.
Very interesting question. Let me analyze this. How does the DMO system in the decentralized game publishing structure ensure fairness-oriented on-chain and incentive? Okay, good question. I think this question is framed in the perspective of, okay, I want to become a DMO and I just want to use Dogecoin and I just like want to make everything super expensive, and then after I get a lot of players on my chain, on my instance, then I'm gonna rock pull them, something like that, I guess. So that is probably not going to be possible, especially not in the early stages, because you need to be verified to become a DMO and you need to actually be a proper developer. You need to have a proper team and you need to fit within, our kind of, let's say, not only framework, but also mental and vision framework, right? So in the beginning, especially now, these DMOs that we are onboarding, they will be highly curated and they will be co-managed by Delysium. So we need to do this way because we need to protect our ecosystem, right? We cannot just say, okay, well, now anybody who wishes can just come and they can just like a free for all build random instances on this universe, right? The Delysium universe. So you need to have this Delysium multiverse license, right? And then with this license you can become a multiverse operator. So yeah, I think that is answering the question initially. And then the second part of the question is, can you provide specific examples or mechanisms that promote fairness within the system? Yeah, I think then we're coming back to the traditional voting right as well. So if we then see, this network of nodes, a network is always made up of nodes. So which nodes have the highest weight and which nodes do actually have the highest voting power and have the highest control? So as the entire framework develops, obviously there are going to be more, checkpoints in place. Okay, well, if somebody wants to perform this, we need to get approval from these and these nodes, right? So I think that's how this system is maintained in the long run as well. And then, obviously there are guidelines. I mean, like the community is built on core values, right? So if somebody comes in and that person, if it's a DMO, for example, they would violate those guidelines, then it would be very easy. Okay, well, we retain the right to revoke your license, right? So we need to have some kind of control, if you will.
Verification. Okay, next question from the Basis. Would love your opinion. Does the present market needs us to take a break or watchful if projects not be launched at all as a result market condition?
Yeah, I think that you always need to be careful, right? I think you always need to be careful. And I'm not a financial advisor at all, and I'm pretty sure Michael is not a financial advisor as well. So from experience, right, there are always projects that do not make. And just like in traditional business, there are always businesses that do not make it. Sometimes the most promising, the most well-funded, the companies with the most amount of employees is the company that eventually goes bankrupt and doesn't make it. And I think this is pretty normal. And I think this also happens more frequently inside the Web3 space. It's because it's such a new environment. You're really on the forefront of the digital frontier, right? So there are a lot of things that, you know, maybe from the perspective of a project developer, it's very possible. Okay, we have this vision, this idea, and we're going to build this crazy thing. And then they realize, oh my God, actually, you know, we need like nearly like 200 to 300 million US dollar to be able to actually build what we want to build, but we only have like $2 to $3 million funding. So, you know, those kind of situations, they happen. And I think that especially in the bear market, you will see a lot of those types of projects slowly disappear. So I would always, you know, like do your due diligence, do the basic research. Who made the project? What is their background? Do they have past success? How big is the team? What kind of people do they have on board? What kind of partnerships do they have? Who are their investors? You know, like by verifying all of these different things, you can easily tell whether a project is really legit or not really legit. Yeah, I think that's the basics of it. So if you look at, for example, our investors, you know, like one of our investors is Y Combinator, Galaxy Interactive, Antos Capital, and the list goes on and on and on and on. So I think that's how you can verify, you know, the legitimacy of a project from a, let's say, the perspective of an idea, but also the perspective of the initial business model, because the investors, they really care about this.
Always do your own research. And even if on the traditional market, because some people, they basically intend to scam another one, but many good projects, they also collapse, and somebody have a good idea, perfect business plan, and they also fail. So it's difficult to choose the right one. Next question from the same user. Do you see NFTs still as the future? They had been around a while and have been sort of adoption so far. However, many people do not understand them. What if the initial investment is not as expected?
Yeah, thank you, Debasis, for your question. And this is something I ask myself as well. You know, I also bought some NFTs, and I remember in the last bull market, I was really excited about NFTs. And the reason why I was excited about NFTs, and I'm still excited about NFTs, don't get me wrong, is actually three things. The first thing is because I really value people creating things from an artistic perspective. So I think that NFTs always have some kind of artistic value. And in the beginning of the NFT boom, this was really the focal point. The focal point was, okay, let's create an environment for these artists where they can, you know, express themselves and they can make money in a fair way, and etc. And we floored all of that. And, you know, for some people it was very beneficial, and for some people it was not. But for that to be sustainable, you're talking about, okay, do I care about art or not? And if you don't care about art, then don't even try to buy an NFT from that perspective. And then the second, let's say, phase was a little bit like, well, okay, how can we see an NFT as something that we can build into a valuable asset? And these valuable assets, they come from utility. So, you know, you might have an NFT, and then this NFT, okay, what does it do, right? With this NFT, what can I do? Is it just something that I can use as my profile picture on social media? Or does it give me some kind of, you know, power, maybe status or something, you know, let's say something on the Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy? Or is does it have a deeper intrinsic value? Does it have on-chain value? Can I use this NFT to represent myself inside the video game? So you need to analyze, you know, why am I buying the NFT? What am I expecting the NFT to do for me? And how is the NFT going to develop in the future? Because there are a lot of projects out there which do create very interesting NFTs. And if we're talking about Delysium, for example, an NFT in Delysium would be actually an item, right? So, or a power-up, or a vehicle, or you know, a DMO license, or, you know, these different NFTs, they are not just, you know, a traditional, you know, artwork as you would imagine it. There's an underlying set of rules, you know, even expectation for this NFT to develop over time and to accrue its value over time and become more and more valuable. And if you're just investing in an NFT as in, well, this looks nice and seems like a lot of people are buying, then okay, well, you know, you already know what it is.
That's a different story. It's called flipping, basically. It's not investing, it's just, you know, flipping one for another one.
Yes, correct.
The basis again. What is the NFT market situation from your own view that you have for us today?
Okay, good question. I think that generally, you know, NFT is like, wait, when the market is going sideways and when the market is not stable, then sometimes NFTs can be an interesting force for people to still generate some revenue, because NFTs, if we're talking about NFT flipping, it's all about the branding of the project, right? So if you find somebody that's really good at marketing and really good at branding and they're launching an NFT, then you might want to invest in that, right? But I think that the NFT market situation is very dynamic at the moment. So you could consider that meme coins, they're also a form of NFTs in my opinion, because it's not really a big utility. And then we see the BRC20. I think those are also considered to be NFTs, definitely. So these are like random booms, like random crazy things that it keep happening. So if actually it's very hard for me to answer this question. But I think if we're talking about my emotional feeling towards NFTs, I do still think that it's a very interesting and very viable business model and also earning model. And in the future, I hope that more people will actually start thinking about the real utility of their NFTs and really give it some hard value. Because I remember starting 2 years ago, or maybe even longer, people started talking about this NFT have this value and it will be your path, and you can use it for this and this and this and that and that. It's all just like beautiful talk, but tell me who really 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 delivered on all of that, let's say, talk. I think it's very few people. So just find a project that actually does what they say they do.
And it depends also if they're gonna continue the work, because some of the projects they just disappear very fast as well.
Yeah.
So that's all the questions which we have from the audience. I would like to ask one question as well.
Sure, go ahead.
Do you know when the new roadmap is coming? Update?
Yeah. So we will be updating starting from June. So in June is going to be a very interesting month, because there's going to be developments and some very big announcements and partnerships. And our intention for this month is to really align everybody's expectations and also show off some of the developments. And I think you'll be very excited. I think your fans will be very excited. And I think this is really going to be the next chapter of Delysium. So this month doesn't have many days left. So I suggest everybody to go over to our Twitter. It's _Delysium. Follow us on Discord. Go into our Telegram. Follow Michael. Join Michael's Telegram and buy a DMA with the code E2NANI and get a cashback. Exactly.
So I think we are done for today. Maybe we can choose a few winners from the people which asked the question. Okay, so the winner is gonna be Messinash, Debasis, and Paul. I will send you a message on Twitter. Just send me your wallet addresses and I will send you the rewards. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm gonna see you again, maybe after the June when we release the roadmap. Then we can have another conversation.
Yes, I think we should do that. Meanwhile, we will stay in touch, and I am very grateful for being on your channel today.
Thank you very much. Peace out.
Thank you. Bye-bye.